the power of being present and how that can help you take big risks and big swings. This came up a lot from the people I spoke with. For instance, Lou Lamoriello, when I would talk to people about Lou, they would say he's everywhere all the time. Teams would get home in the middle of the night, 3 a.m. from a road trip. There was Lou first thing in the morning, suit and tie, first car in the parking lot, always present all the time. George McPhee said him and GM Kelly McCrimmon always make a point of having breakfast at the facility in front of all the players, because if something small comes up, they can deal with it in the moment. And the guy that really captured this for me was Jim Rutherford. We met on this rainy, dreary day at this country club outside Pittsburgh. And in my head, I thought of Jim Rutherford as he's a gunslinger, right? Jim Rutherford's making big deals all the time and, all these massive trades to help the team. And which is partially true, right? Jim does these things. But it's how he gets information that I found really interesting. He listens. He listens to those who work for him, but not in an interrogation type of way. The way that Mike Sullivan put it, who coached for him in Pittsburgh, he said he noticed it when they were on the road. Jim always went to dinner with the coaches, and he would just sit at the end of the table, in a room full of coaches. This is when you're at your most honest. You're watching games on TV, you're having a few beers, you're talking about the team, you're complaining about the players, and Jim would sit there and listen to it. And then occasionally, Mike said, he would prompt them with questions. One time he says, you remember Jim going, hey, what do you think of Carl Hagelin, who he knew was available? Here's Carl playing not too far from here. And the coaches wanted to get faster, and Jim knew that because he had been there for all of those conversations. They trade for Carl Hagelin. He forms that line with Phil Kessel. Probably the reason they win the Stanley Cup, at least one of the 2 years when they went back-to-back. Because Jim took this big swing, but it was an informed decision that he made by being present. The third point, don't just learn from your mistakes, succeed because of them. I learned this from George McPhee, who runs the Vegas Golden Knights. So, as part of the research for this book, I got invited to the ring ceremony of the Golden Knights, which was amazing. Great hotel. I just wanted to share this with you all. This is a bunch of Elvis impersonators handing the players their rings while Viva Las Vegas is playing. I don't know a better way to get a $50,000 ring or whatever they were, more than that. And it was awesome. So the next day I'm meeting with George, and he's, you could just tell he was really reflective. He'd had his day with the cup. He'd got his ring. It's on his finger as we're talking. And he just started talking about his career. And I said, what have you learned from your mistakes? He'd been around a while running teams. If you remember, he got fired after 17 years with the Washington Capitals. This guy drafted Ovechkin, Backstrom, but they never won the big one. And he was gone. And he thought a moment, and he said, we were talking about maybe the one mistake he made or the one moment he learned from. And to him, it was about coaches and how he handled coaches. His last hire was Adam Oates, but he said before he hired Adam, he did 3 interviews that really stood out to him. Dean Evison, who was a great coach, Craig Berube, who would later go on to win a Stanley Cup with the Blues, and John Cooper, this young, up-and-coming AHL coach, who, of course, is maybe the best coach in the game right now. Like, John Cooper's unbelievable. And all of them impressed George McPhee. And John Cooper met with them. I think it was at a draft in Pittsburgh. It went great. They ended up going back to the team's suite and watching baseball together. John Cooper said it was hours and hours of conversation. He was convinced he was getting the job. But when George called him, he was calling up to let him know, no, it wasn't him. And even on that call, John Cooper said he just felt like this didn't feel like it was George's decision. It felt a little bit off. And George would later say, yeah, he wanted to hire John. And for whatever reason, he didn't make that hire. And so when he goes to Vegas, this is all behind him. He's now got a new start running a new franchise. And I'm going to read how he handles coaches now. And these are his words, and I apologize for the language. He says, now, I don't f*** around with coaches. We're getting the best coach available, and that's all there is to it.